Good morning, everyone. We're finally here. Let me get the music off. My dog's hating it. Good morning, everyone. I am surprised I got here. Sorry for if you're watching and you got the delay. Just had some camera issues. Got them sorted out. And here we are, 9 o'clock on a beautiful Melbourne wintry morning. For the first edition of the Eureka Conservative Daily. For those who followed me previously, we used to have a little show called the Charlie Kirk Bible Read and Bob Rant. Well, this is replacing that. So it's basically the same format, but it's coming to you every day, 9 o'clock, so it can be consistent, so people can keep a lookout for it, and so we can start pushing back on a lot of the oppression. Oh, I keep going over the wrong shoulder on that flag over there. I should have figured this out by now. Anyway, one thing for those who don't know, we always give a bit of a view over the bay. Don't know how well this will go with the camera issues we got, but we'll do it anyway because it is a beautiful Melbourne wintry day. And that is it. The Port Phillip Bay is a pond, clear skies. It'll be crisp, but the sun's out. It was beautiful here yesterday in Melbourne. So despite all the politics and everything going wrong, yeah, the weather's still pretty good. It's cold, very, very cold. So if you're up in the Gold Coast or Brisbane or you're following us from up there, well done. You've got the lottery ticket. But I actually personally love these wintry Melbourne days. I don't know why, probably because I was a kid, spent much of my youth in Tasmania, and you don't get it much colder than you do down in Tassie. Especially when you, like us, we were living on the west coast of Tassie, where the roaring 40s from the South Pole would hit you every winter. Actually, would hit you all year round. And very interesting history down there. If you ever get the chance to go down, of all things, the mining history. Sorry, guys, just still getting myself set up. Got to put the camera back on power once I give you that view. So, what is the purpose of the Eureka Conservative Daily? Thank God I've actually changed it because that's a much better thing. We used to do daily, or we tried to do daily episodes, but it proved very difficult as we went later in the day. And with my work, it was getting busier and busier. So probably the only feasible time to do it where I could be confident I could put it out every day is 9 o'clock in the morning, which is killing me, because I'm not an early riser, but I've got my big cup of coffee, which I'll be sipping a few times. So I'm just going to have to that's the price I'm going to have to pay to push back on some of the nonsense our government's setting upon us, and hopefully rallying some others to do the same. So that's why we're doing it. So we're going to have just a bit of each day talk about the daily, the events from the previous day. As you can see, I'm a one-man band. I come from my little home office. I come from a crappy laptop. I don't have the headphones. I don't have the mics. I don't have any of that. It's just an ordinary, everyday Australian who is just getting things off his chest, but also encouraging other people like me that you can speak out, despite all the things that are trying to restrict our speech, if not oppress our speech, despite all the changes in legislation that are dividing us, they're not uniting us, and we'll come to that in a minute. You can get online and have your say. You can get online and develop a following, and in doing that, hopefully we all can produce a voice that they're trying to suppress, and we'll also get onto that into this episode today. So that's the whole purpose of the Bible read, and because whether you like it or not, don't care, I think it's healthy. I think it's something our country needs to push back into, and that's my Christian faith. So we hear a lot about Islam. We hear a lot about anti-Semitism. We're not hearing as much in the mainstream media, and this has been going on for some time now, about Christian faith. We hear it on the holidays, and we hear it all on that, but you know, there are initiatives from politicians, for example, to remove the Lord's Prayer out of our parliament. That would be a very sad day, in my opinion, if that happened. What are we on, the 20th? So one of the little rituals we'll go to every day, and for those who haven't followed me before, is my mum gave me this book, God bless her, And it was just to try and maintain the faith that she'd given me. So when me and my brothers, all 7 of them, and my sisters, all 2 of them, big family, I know, good Catholics. When we were growing up, Mum took us all along to church every Sunday to all the Catholic holidays and services and all that sort of thing. So we were raised Catholic. I don't think you ever make your own decision about your own faith until, for me, it was 27. I can remember it pretty clearly now. Though I always leaned that way, I probably hadn't come to accept it as much as I did. After that, most of my decisions were based around that faith. I've not got no regrets about that. I describe myself, for example, as a poor Christian, not in regards to wealth, in that I am a Catholic. I go to church. I go to church regularly, but I don't go as often as I should. That's probably the best way to describe it. I do things in my life that probably breach, which nearly every single human being, 99.9% of us, it's only a small minority that would, if there is one, that would follow the Catholic faith and the Christian teachings to the letter. I certainly don't do that. And listen, I could be a better Catholic. So I'm going to say things and do things and here that would probably, for most judgmental Catholics, the ones who judge everybody by everything they want to be doing and say you're not a good enough Catholic or a good enough Christian, I'm definitely going to breach that. So forgive me in advance. The only forgiveness I need is God's. So, and I've started going to confession a bit more, not a lot more. I didn't go to confession for about, 30 years. But in the last couple of years, I've gone probably every 6 months. Probably should do that more often too. So anyway, I am a believer in Jesus Christ. I am a believer in the Catholic Church for all its faults, like every human organisation out there. But more importantly, we need to be getting, with our way of life, being constantly threatened and intimidated by other ideologies. And let's get it out there. I think the Islamic faith sometimes intimidates other faith. That's not even up for argument. That's just fact. I mean, there's plenty of circumstantial fact to verify that comment all over the thing. Now we've got these Islamophobic guidelines coming in that are going to reach its tentacles out even into our schools. So in an attempt to basically indoctrinate the future young ones of this country. And it's time we started pushing back, another key part of this thing. So a little pushback is just to read a passage from the Christian Bible once a day. So here's ours. Numbers 21:4-9. I haven't read that book yet. Out in the desert, so often there's a relapse just after a victory. Having defeated the Canaanites, all the Israelites can think about is making complaints about God. Sounds pretty. Things haven't changed much, have they, in 2,000, 3,000 years? The Israelites left Mount Hor, unfortunate name, by the road that leads to the Gulf of Aqaba in order to go around the territory of Edom. But on the way, people lost their patience and spoke against God and Moses. They complained, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die in the desert where there is no food or water? We can't stand any more of this miserable food." Then the Lord sent poisonous snakes among the people, and many Israelites were bitten and died. The people came to Moses and said, "We sinned when we spoke against the Lord and against you. Now pray to the Lord to take these snakes away." So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord told Moses to make a metal snake and put it on a pole so that anyone who was bitten could look at it and be healed. So Moses made a bronze snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who had been bitten would look at that bronze snake and be healed. Didn't know that. There you go. Something we learn every single day. So that's all I do. As you can see, there's the book every day. Sorry, good news every day. I find it very therapeutic. And like I said, I find out a little bit like I just did then. I didn't know about that. That explains snakes on a pole. if you see anything in a church or anything that refers to snakes on a pole, that's its meaning. So, you had the devil as a snake with Adam and Eve. So, I mean, it does bring an interesting thing. Is a lot of the things we read about, see on film, see in the news, it can be manipulated to mean one thing when it means something entirely different, which is very appropriate when we come into what we're about to talk about today. So there's a regular photo that's put up on social media of a room in the Vatican that has something that looks like snake eyes, where a lot of the bishops and nuns and all that, they go in there. I don't know where they go to pray or meet or whatever it is, but they're put up as that's an example of the Vatican being invaded by the devil, by Satan. Could have something more to do with that. I don't know. So you need to research the history of all these things and find out the real meaning behind it. So anyway, that's it. That's the end of our, for those two concerned, that's the end of our, why is that up there? Oh, yeah, that's bad. Sorry, technicalities. So Monday, what are we going to be talking about on Monday? Monday, sorry for running my eyes, but I am not used to Monday mornings at 9 o'clock, I got to tell you. But here we are. Monday mornings, 9 o'clock. We are going to be getting into this, what do they call him? I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave it to Sam Bamford. Let me get it up for you in a minute because my X is still coming up. My computer, like me, is very slow on a Monday. So while we're waiting for it, this is why, I ask for people to support me with a cup of coffee. Not the literal cup of coffee, the online cup of coffee where you can buy me one. So any support out there is great. I'm not going to be doing any merch or anything like that, but if you support what I do and you also want to push back, give us a bit of support, buy us a coffee. I'll put it in the links of this video. And, yeah, just support those and those like me who get out there and push back against the mainstream media nonsense because we need as many of us as we possibly can to be doing that at the moment. Otherwise, we are, I believe, going to lose our country in the next couple of decades. So we'll get into our rant in a minute. Let's listen to Sam Bamford, who has his critics and non-critics, but let's listen. I think this is very appropriate.
Has officially now adopted the Islamophobia report, which had 54 recommendations in it. And the Anthony Albanese government is coming out and telling us that they have addressed 35 of those recommendations, but they're not telling us which ones. And the dude that wrote the report, he migrated here in 2012 from the UK, and his parents originated from Pakistan. And this dude solely went out to the Muslim community, consulted with them, but no one else, and then handed the report to the Anthony Albanese government. And now there are new laws, new rules within our schooling system, new task force within the AFP, and more funding towards multiculturalism. And here they are. Is the Education Task Force. A new national task force will train teachers and review school curricula to better address and prevent Islamophobia and promote religious tolerance. It's now going to our school system, and our kids are going to be taught about this. Training for public servants, politicians, and police. Mandatory or expanded training programs to help government officials, MP, police, and legal staff recognise and respond to Islamophobia. Expanded AFP liaison and new social cohesion team. Like we don't already have enough departments within the AFP to deal with all this social cohesion crap. New funding for mental health services and support programs, especially targeting the trauma experienced by Muslims due to hate incidents. Like, shouldn't we just protect all women in Australia? Shouldn't there be support for all women, not just a specific group of women? New multicultural grants for Muslim communities. More money in a cost of living crisis, which is actually a cost of government crisis coming out of our taxpayer funded money going to the Muslim community. Like university legal obligations on Islamophobia. Universities will now have a legal duty to actively prevent and respond to Islamophobia on campus. Hate crimes database acceleration. Faster rollout of hate crimes national database. Security funding for mosques and schools. Here we go. Framework for banning hate groups. This is the laws that are going to come in. That's all it says there. National Information Hub on Islamophobia. It's like, is there an Australian phobia report that's been given to the government about people burning our national flag? Or what about a Christian phobia group? What about when these radical lefties hire out an old church and start doing degenerate shit in there. And then Chris Mims signs off on the approval for that. What about the Christian phobia report that needs to be handed to the government? Anyway, I cover this and much more on my 45 to an hour minute monologue that is now live. What's your
So there you have, Sam. We're going to go through that again in a minute, and then I'm going to have my say. Sam makes a lot of points. And Sam is like me. I have my critics. I'll share you one of them in a minute. And also one of the things I want to highlight, and anyone I'm critical of is more than welcome to come on my podcast and have a discussion with me. I put that out there regularly. I don't have a massive following. Hopefully we can build it up over the time. But I want to talk to people on the other side as well as I want to talk to people on my side of the debate. And we all have different sides. I don't agree with everything Sam says. I think Sam's great, but I don't agree with everything he says, or I'm not too sure about everything he says. I've asked both Sam and Scott Challen, for example, to come on to my podcast. I'd happily go on theirs. But everybody needs to be to start and discuss. More discussion will lead to a better Australia, is my belief. More open discussion and debate will lead to what we all need, whether we are Christian, Anglo, immigrant, Muslim, Jewish, whatever. And I'm open to having a discussion with an Islamic person, scholar, teacher, or just an everyday Aussie, and find out where they're at with a lot of their things. Maybe we as Christians, maybe we as Anglo-Australians have a misconception about Islam. Do people have a right, for example, to have a phobia about Islam? I would say when you consider the amount of terrorist acts over the globes since, say, the turn of the century, since 2000, we probably do. Yes. But are those fears founded or unfounded? So it would be interesting to have a talk. I'm sure if you talk to anyone in the Jewish community, they'd be pretty. They would make the argument that they have every right to be in fear of the Islamic community. So anyway, I just want to play again a bit of what Sam's got to say, but this time I'm going to pause it and comment on it a little. You should give, by the way, Sam a follow. I follow lots of people who I agree and don't disagree with. I am not so polarized in my thinking that I can't accept someone else's discussion. I might argue against it, but just because, for example, let's say it's Sam has a point of view I don't agree with, it doesn't mean neither of us can't talk about it. We have become too polarized. When we become too polarized, we do become divided. And I think this is exactly what Albanese wants, because Albanese wants us divided for one reason and one reason only. So he and the ALP can retain power. Power is a very corruptible thing. But anyway, let's listen to Sam again.
Okay, so the Anthony Albanese regime has officially now adopted the Islamophobia report, which had 54 recommendations in it. And the Anthony Albanese government is coming out and telling us that they have addressed 35 of those recommendations, but they're not telling us which ones.
They will be the ones, those 35, that work best to garner them support from the Islamic community to support their politicians at the next election. They want to carry favour with the Islamic community, so the Islamic leadership will push them at the next election. That's as clear as day. And if the leadership within the Islamic community say to their people, you need to vote ALP, they will overwhelmingly vote ALP. You've only got to look at Gaza, where they voted in Hamas, one of the most ruthless terrorist regimes on the planet, and they basically have done what they've told them ever to do ever since. They had a chance not to vote him in, but they voted him in because their leadership told them to. They didn't think about what the repercussions of that vote is. That's why we have to be very particular about the repercussions of our votes from this point on, because I'll be blunt, the future of this country relies on it.
And the dude that wrote the report, he migrated here in 2012 from the UK, and his parents originated from Pakistan.
So if you don't understand the seriousness of that, there is a huge issue in England, which Spotlight 7 refused to touch yesterday, with the Pakistani rape gangs in England, that a person called Tommy Robinson is been fighting now for a good decade, going to jail over and fighting the good fight. But the media's trying to tear him down over what they perceive to be his past sins, which Tommy acknowledges. Tommy regrets. He has for quite some time now. But there's people like Piers Morgan, Andrew Bolt, and now Liam Bartlett who are trying to tear him down to get at Hanson. So let's keep going.
And this dude solely went out to the Muslim community, consulted with them, but no one else.
So how can you have a thing about Islamophobia? How can you say, I don't even know how to, Islamophobia. How can you have a thing about Islamophobia if all you speak to is Muslims? Well, of course you're going to get a one-sided story. How do you know if anyone's fearful of Islam if you don't go to speak to people who aren't involved in Islam? I mean, of course they're going to say it's a thing if you're part of an Islamophobia thing. So it's a ridiculous exercise in bureaucracy before it even starts.
And then handed the report to the Anthony Albanese government, and now there are new laws, new rules. So
do we need more news laws? Do we need more laws about all this sort of nonsense? We're heading to a point that you're not going to be able to say a word against Islam without facing repercussions. That's where we're heading towards. So, it's really like me. Speak out now while you can speak out. Because very soon, and who decides, for example, which we'll get into in a minute, what those laws in regards to hate speech, what is hate speech, what isn't hate speech, who's going to be deciding it? This new special envoy for Islam.
Laws within our schooling system.
Dangerous. Our schooling system, that's your primary schools, secondary schools, universities. They're going to be using it from here on in to tell every kid in our schools that Islam is a force for good. All right? I've certainly got no doubt there are parts of Islam that are a force for good. I've certainly got no doubt also that there's also just as many parts of Islam that are a force for bad. And they don't hide it. It's right in front of your face. You've only got to get in front of social media. Why do you think our government is so keen to censor social media? Hopefully Elon Musk has some sort of strategy to make sure that can really never legitimately happen. But we'll see. Now we're also going into our security
new task force within the AFP and more funding towards multiculturalism. And here they.
And there's that magic word, multiculturalism again. Again, we'll get into that a little later in the program. But it should be concerning to everyone that now this is getting its tentacles into the Australian Federal Police. The same Australian Federal Police that dealt with the massacre on Bondi Beach by 2 radical Muslims. But now we're going to be told, no, hold on, Islam's not bad. Islam's a force for good. Don't worry about these guys that just shot 15 people dead and injured another 45 with life-changing injuries, all because they were Jewish. So our federal police is now going to be tainted or tasked with fighting against a thing that may not even exist. So let's keep going.
Islamophobia Education Task Force.
Does that mean our kids are going to go to mosque and start bowing down to Allah? I've seen those videotapes in England where public schools, without, in many instances, the approval of their parents, are taking kids to mosque and they're bowing, kneeling down and giving acknowledgement to Allah. Now, there's a certain thing about that in the Old Testament that we're not allowed to do as Christians. So if you're a Christian with a child in a public school, if you're a Jewish person with a child in a public school, you should be a bit concerned about that. I wouldn't be saying a kid in a public school should be taken to a church. You go to a public school for a public education. That public education should have no ties to any faith-based ideology whatsoever. If you want that, you take your kid to a Christian school. You take your kid to a Jewish school. You take your kid to an Islamic school. That's what it is if you want to raise your child like that. No student should be forced in our country along to anything they don't choose to be a part of. That's part of being a non-secular society, but not anymore.
A new national task force will train teachers and review school curricula.
Now we're going to have blonde-haired, pink-rinsed teachers who are going to be coming out, probably from the LGBTQI class, saying how Islam is great while turning a blind eye to the fact that they execute gays in the Middle East for breaching Islamic ideology, laws, whatever over there. And we're going to be getting told that that is going to be good. It's going to be going into our curriculum. You ask any kid in the public school system, what do they study most in Australian history, for example? I can tell you now, it's the Indigenous culture. Now it's going to be getting combined in with the Indigenous, trans, LGBTQI, and the Islamic culture. So we've got all these forces, but don't bring in an Australian flag. Don't bring in your Christian ideology. Don't dare fight for the unborn. Don't go to a university campus. I dare you to set up a stand with an Australian flag, a Christian cross, and some protest sign about abortion. See how long you last. Certain speech will be free and defended. Other speech won't be. The speech that this country is built on will be the one that is ostracized.
To better address and prevent Islamophobia and promote religious tolerance.
How tolerant of other religions is Islam? I've got a very interesting story to share with you in a minute that'll give you this thing. If you commit apostasy, I can't even say the word. I think it's apostasy. I don't say it much. But basically where, let's say, if you are a Muslim or you have any links to Islam in your past, if you become a Christian and you deny Islamic ideology and faith, you can be put to death. In Australia, if that happened, at the moment, that can't be. So this is heading to a very dark
now
place.
Going to our school system, and our kids are going to be taught about this. Training for public service.
So they're going to be taught about Sharia law, which is the oppression of women, the oppression of the kafir. I think it's the kafir. People who don't believe in Islam. Is that what's going to be happening? Is that what we're going to be getting into education?
Servants, politicians.
Public servants, politicians, and police. So this tentacles of this are going everywhere. As if our bureaucracy wasn't as bad as it already is. As if our politicians weren't a bunch of corrupt, incompetent bastards and bitches. Let's be blunt. Let's be equal equality here. And again, we'll give you a clip of Jane Hume in a minute. And amongst our police force. So the police who are going to be enforcing these laws are going to be indoctrinated into all the ways of Islam.
Mandatory or expanded training programs to help government officials, MP, police, and legal staff recognise and respond to Islamophobia. Respond
to Islamophobia. That's how are they going to respond to it? And I'll tell you what this is all heading to.
AFP liaison and new social cohesion team.
God, I had that time.
We don't already have enough departments within the AFP to deal with all this social cohesion crap. New funding for mental health services and support programs, especially targeting the trauma experienced by Muslim women due to hate incidents.
So where do most of those hate incidents come from for Muslim women? Do a lot of them come from within their own Islamic community? Have you seen how, just do your own research. It's not hard. Get on Google. And look up, type in oppression for Islamic women. And just look at what happens in radical Islamic countries. Look at what the Taliban, how they treat women. Look how women are treated within Iran. Look how women are treated in some of the worst of the worst of the worst Islamic countries. Even look at how they're treated in the more moderate Islamic countries. Look how they're treated within our own Islamic communities. I mean, if you're an Islamic woman, you've got to be covered from head to toe. You've got to be covered from head to toe so Muslim men don't get any impure thoughts. So what does that say about the Islamic community itself? That they have that sort of way that they want women treated. Don't believe that. Watch the Spotlight special where a young girl has been convinced that it's a good idea to cover herself from head to toe. Is that what we want for our daughters, our sisters, our mothers? Is that the way we want our women to live? Where are the feminist crew arguing against this nonsense?
Shouldn't we just protect all women in Australia?
Exactly, Sam.
Shouldn't there be support for all women, not
Exactly
just a
same.
specific group of women. New multicultural
Exactly
grants for Muslim communities.
Why do we need to be giving them more grants? They get plenty as it is. And multicultural, I mean, there it is, that multicultural grants. I'm starting to lean to the fact that that is the most evil word in Australian vocabulary. It's just becoming, and if you dare to talk against it, you're painted as a racist. It's got nothing to do with racism. It's got everything to do with power. It's got everything to do with dividing our country. It's got everything to diverting attention away from where the attention should be. It's a vile, evil word in my book, and that's got nothing to do with racial hatred, but people are convinced, for example, because Pauline Hanson is against the term multiculturalism, the term, that she's a racist. She's not. And there's plenty of evidence to back up that she's not. But you will not get that from mainstream media.
More money in a cost of living crisis, which is actually a cost of government crisis coming up.
Absolutely it is. We've got more bureaucrats employed all across, and now they're arguing to spend more money on more bureaucrats, on more departments, when they're $1 trillion in debts. Where's this money tree coming from?
Our taxpayer-funded money.
That's where it's coming from.
Going to the Muslim community, like university legal obligations on Islamophobia.
So that now means if there's a Palestinian protest on university campuses, it would be illegal for anybody to mount a counter protest. You see how this works? So and that's going to come under Islamophobia guidelines, and they can call in the police who've been trained in this, and you will not be able to mount a counter protest if you wish to against Islamophobia. That's coming to our universities. It's coming to our schools. It is coming to our streets.
Universities will now have a legal duty to actively prevent and respond to Islamophobia.
They have a legal duty. So you can say whatever you want to say about Sharia law, about Gaza, about Iran, about supporting Islam, and the universities have a legal obligation now to protect against Islamophobia. In America, they've gone the flip side. If you encourage that under Trump, the universities will face legal repercussions. So we've gone a totally opposite direction to the USA and Trump. Let's be honest, our politicians love to kiss the USA ass over there, for sure.
Campus hate crimes database acceleration. Faster.
Hate crime database acceleration. So what constitutes a hate crime? For example, me speaking out against the special envoy and speaking out against this initiative and these recommendations, is that a hate crime? Do I still have the right to an opinion to say this is ridiculous? Do I have the right to an opinion to say our universities should be about open debate and the debate of ideas and knowledge? It shouldn't be shutting down any voices because of these guidelines, or in our schools. Will that be a hate crime? Will it be a hate crime to say Islam actually does produce radical extremists who murder people? That's not an if or but. That's actually a fact. Will that be a hate crime moving forward?
Rollout of hate crimes national database.
Will I be on that national database?
Security funding for mosques and schools.
So this is great. We got security funding for mosques and schools. And for example, a lot of the terrorist activities, the AFP themselves have identified there are certain places, certain mosques and maybe schools, not too sure, but definitely mosques, where radical Islam thrives, where there are imams who preach radical Islam, who encourage it. So now we're going to actually give them increased securities, more fences, more gates, more security officers, so the radical element can sit in their mosque and their schools and plan the next attack. Isn't that great? Aren't we feeling safe? Multicultural
framework for banning hate groups. This is the laws that are going to come in.
That's what I'm saying. So if you oppose, what makes a group? Is that one person? Could that be construed, say, as me, Sam, anybody else who's a podcaster who speaks out against this sort of stuff? Are we part of a hate group? Are they going to try to imply, for example, as they're trying to imply that Pauline Hanson wants the one white Australia policy back? Are they going to taint everyone like that, and then they can say he's part of that hate group? So, again, it's a very big brother frightening step that they're taking.
That's all it says there. National Information Hub.
And like it says, that's all it says there. It leaves a broad brush that they can stroke anybody with. So there's a lot more to what Sam's saying, if you understand. It's a frightening way we're going
on
as a country.
Islamophobia. It's like, is there an Australian phobia report that's been given to the
There should
government
be.
about people burning our national flag? Or what about a Christian phobia group? What about
There should
when these
be.
radical lefties hire out an old church and start doing degenerate shit in there?
There should
And then
be.
Chris Mims signs off on the approval for that. What about the Christian phobia report that needs to be handed to the government?
There should be.
Anyway, I cover this and much more on my 45.
So there you go. Good old Sammy. Give him a follow. Give everybody, I'm going to point out the ones, if you're like me and you love that flag, who you should be following. Sam's definitely one of them. And like I said, I don't agree. I'm yet to be convinced on the elements of this mass deportation remigration scheme. Is there a need for it in certain circumstances? Absolutely. If you're a person that's here illegally, if you're a person that is trying to ruin our culture, if you're a person that won't accept the Australian way of life, is trying to force something on us, but that applies to our government politicians. Pity we can't deport them. Yeah, so there's got to be certain things. Are you a person planning violence against other Australians? Well, yeah, definitely. You need to be deported. Where we deport them to, because other countries are going to take them, I don't know, or how you address it. So I'd like to see the policy behind these certain things on how we go about it. And now, Pauline Hanson last night in Spotlight was all for it. Pauline Hanson and One Nation have got to be very careful. Very, very careful. If you watch the Channel 7 Spotlight episode last night, they had a certain bastard called Liam Bartlett, and he is a pig of a man. I'll get into my bookmarks. Liam Bartlett followed, and I don't know why. I honestly do not know why Pauline allowed Liam Bartlett to. She worked with. This was obviously a choice by One Nation, and maybe it was a choice to get their people out there and get their message out there. I'm not too sure it was such a good choice, honestly. The episode that they put to air last night was a setup. It was a setup of those who support Pauline Hanson, for example, like Tommy Robinson. It was a setup. They knew, and here is the problem with a lot of it. They knew straight away that Pauline was going to be expressing these views on Islam and her policies and where she wanted to go. Now, if you can't smell setup in this, Liam, but I've got no doubt, I can't prove this, but I have no doubt that this guy, I'll show you in a minute, where are we? If you'd recognize him. If you don't know him, this is the guy. You'll see him on Spotlight. So this is the guy, Liam Bartlett. Look up the episode of Spotlight. Do your own research on here. Look up you won't, if you're like me, you'll get pretty disgusted by it. But he last night followed Pauline Hanson around as she did a UK tour. And he challenged Tommy Robinson, which was just absurd. If any of you follow Tommy Robinson, I'll see if I've got it here. I'm just trying to find it as I'm speaking. So he followed her all around the UK. I've got a few here to go through with you, so bear with me. There's a special envoy go. As you can see, I'm a Richmond supporter. We're establishing. Look at this. I've got to show you this. I'll read this out. This is Jason Clare. He's a pig of a man. He's no Aussie. There is no place for discrimination, racism, or any type of hate in our society. Yeah, that's fine, but do anybody within the Islamic community do that? Do they have discrimination, racism, or any type of hate? There is no more we need to do here, and education. There is a lot more we need to do here, and education can play an important part. Now, when the ALP say education, they mean indoctrination. We've already started that work. We are working on the curriculum. Now, read that. Every time they write that, we are working on the curriculum to strengthen understanding of Australian values. That's our kids they're working on. And he says the understanding of Australian values. What Australian values is he exactly talking about? In suburbs where you have a really strong Islamic demographic, is that the values we're talking about? Or is it the other suburbs where we have maybe a strong Anglo demographic entwined? They're two totally different approaches to life. Which Australian values are we talking about? Because Australian values are different to Islamic values. The long-term Australian heritage values that we've all grew up with in our time, but they're trying to use this century to bring about their new Australia, their modern Australia. We are now taking the next step by establishing the Social Cohesion Advisory Council. What a ridiculous name. No government has done more to foster disunity in our country than this current one. You've only got to go back to their voice referendum. They split this country to where it was at each other's jugular about something that was never going to win in the referendum. And to do ongoing work to strengthen social cohesion across the education system. Not across society, but across the education system. So the curriculum, education system, education, all of this, they are trying to indoctrinate the next generation. Part of its work will be providing advice to government on the key recommendations of the respective uni report. It will also do a review of the school curriculum focusing on strengthening racial and religious tolerance. And it will develop a social cohesion framework for schools to help teachers and school leaders to do this. That screams, and this guy, his name should be Joseph Goebbels, not Jason Clare. That is pure indoctrination statement. And why does the federal government have an education department when education is the responsibility of states? Nuts. Let's see what else we have here. I'm just trying to find this one. Look under my notifications. I'll see if I can find. There's one of this Liam Bartlett having a crack at actually, it might be better in here, at Tommy Robinson. I want to share it with you because Tommy Robinson took him to bits. There's a few bits yet we've got to share. Sorry. There's my announcement on the daily. Oh, please. I'm skipping past so many good bits. I'm getting to my point. Bear with me. Remember, it's a group of one. There's that thing again. I'm a basketball. Maybe I didn't put it on there. I'm sure I had it. Got to be better at this, don't I, guys? I'll get better the more I do it. I'm going to have to just put one up for the episode. That was our last episode. Yeah, no, that's a bit back now. So anyway, I tell you what I do. I know we've had it on. Someone I butt heads with a fair bit. I actually don't butt heads. That's wrong. I shouldn't say that. I don't butt heads with him. I do express differences of opinion to him. Here's Harvey. He had... what's he doing? There it is. God, there's a bit. Sorry, guys. One day, if you keep shouting me enough coffees, here we go. Got it. Last. This is Liam Bartlett. Listen to this with Tommy Robinson and how he tried to paint Tommy Robinson. This is
fake stream media idea. I don't know where you get that from, but it's not happening here.
See, this is the fake stream media.
I'm asking
This is exactly the fake stream media.
Well, don't worry about the labels.
No,
just answer the question.
I wish I hadn't been in 10 prisons. Yeah, I wish all those things. But unfortunately, everyone silent about the rape of our whole country. I wasn't. So no, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. I'm not claiming to sit here polishing my halo, which is why I'm from a town like this. This is a rough town. I'm from a rough upbringing, yeah? And if I didn't have that rough upbringing, I'd have been too scared to open my mouth. And you can keep shouting people down and calling them whatever words you want, and you can use the media to try and downplay it. The public are going to be with people like me and people like Pauline. They see straight past all they don't give they can see with their own eyes. Yeah? Should any Australian town end up like Pakistan? Simple question.
This fake stream media idea, I don't know where you get that from, but it's not happening here.
See, this is the fake stream media.
I'm asking
This is exactly...
That there is a classic example. Now, I'd suggest before you start getting opposed to Tommy Robinson, now there's a lot of people out there, I won't say you, there's a lot of people out there that don't like Tommy Robinson because he supports Israel, and he supports Zionism. So that's Tommy Robinson's decision. Again, there's no one I'm ever going to probably agree with everything on. So you got to, for those who want to be black and white about everything, I'm a pretty black and white individual, but I also understand other people also have their views and they're strong on their views. I look for people I can agree with, even though I might disagree with them on some things. Tommy Robinson is a person I can agree with an awful lot of. But the media, the mainstream media like Liam Bartlett, I'll put it again, people like Andrew Bolton, Piers Morgan, who supposedly are on the right, which is bizarre in itself in that claim. The media are trying to discredit people like Tommy Robinson because Pauline has now had an interview with Tommy Robinson. So before Pauline, as she was rising the polls, she was the Sky News darling. But now all of a sudden, because she's leading the Liberals and the Liberals are a dumpster fire and they're pretty much getting into minor party status, all of a sudden there's a very concerted push on Sky News to discredit Pauline. And they're going to use Tommy Robinson to do that because Tommy Robinson does, unfortunately for Tommy, have a criminal history. Now, some of those criminal history he admits to, like he just did in that clip. But if you research Tommy Robinson, a lot of his history too on that is taking a stand against the Pakistani Islamic rape gangs that have been at a report table to the English Parliament detailing their crimes. And Tommy's been calling this out for a decade and exposing other things about Islam in his country. And he's gone to jail twice about it. So should he be considered a criminal for speaking out against things that he sees as a threat to his country, his culture, his way of life, to his people? But they're going to use that. The media are going to use that to taint his name and in association to taint that with Pauline. They did it last night. They did a little gotcha question on Pauline because Pauline asked Tommy about whether he was going to come to Australia, and Tommy said, I've not looked to do it. Where he has. He's done it twice. And so Bartlett had a little gotcha moment and then tried to twist that to turn Pauline against Tommy. Pauline's got to be a little bit careful. And I hope she's got good advised people around her like Barnaby. And Barnaby is handling these questions really well. So she's got to really take a lot of lead from Barnaby and some advice from Barney. He's been through the ringer himself before because they are going to be trying to tear them down like they tore down Tommy. So this whole episode last night, for example, was all about Liam Bartlett following Tommy. They had interviews and they took, when Pauline got back to Australia, they took her to an Islamic school and sat her down with 3 female. That's really interesting. They didn't have male students in that interview. They had 3 female students in the interview to represent Islam. They didn't have male students. Why did they not have male students? Why did Channel 7 only present Pauline Hanson with female students? If you go to a mosque, in the mosque, the women are made to sit out the back. It's all the men who are at the mosque. If you don't believe that, get on Google and search up Albo's visit to the mosque. I think it was in Lakemba. And him and Tony Burke, and how they were hounded out of that mosque. There wasn't a woman to be seen. They were all men. So it's very curious that the spokespeople they've chosen to put in front of Pauline are female students, young girls, not male students. Why is that? Are they worried that the male students might say something they might regret later on? And one of the students, they deliberately put her behind a face covering. It wasn't a burqa, but it was a face covering. She was covered head to toes. Interesting, she had tats on her hands. So obviously, in certain situations, she can have her body defiled, but in other situations, she's got to have her body covered up. So I found that very interesting. It smelt of a setup. The whole thing, from start to finish, from Channel 7 and Spotlight, it was a setup to try and paint Pauline as a racist. And now you've got politicians coming out because when they were having an interview, she was having a talk with Rupert Lowe, the leader of Restore in England, who's got some pretty tough policies on remigration and getting his country back. A lot of those policies I would agree with and support. Does that make me guilty of a hate crime? I don't support all of them, but I support a lot of it. And I think a lot of Australians would be widely in support. If you look into Rupert Lowe and his policies on migration, there will be a lot of Australians going supportive of that policy. So he asked, when did all this start and come about? And Pauline rightly identified when the White Australia policy finished, we headed into multiculturalism, and then immigration just got bigger, multiculturalism got wider, and that led to all the issues we're facing today. That's accurate. That's exactly what it did. Did Pauline say she wanted to bring the White Australia policy back? No, she did not. But what you're hearing this morning, and I'll prove it, is that the media and the politicians, all they want to do is discredit Pauline. And let's go back to what on Harvey. Give Harvey a follow too. I don't agree with a number of things Harvey does, but I think we agree, Holly. Sorry for that view. Let's get back to this morning and this dingbat. These two are just such low individuals. Very low independent. Jane Hume, the moderate deputy opposition leader. Now let's be honest about one thing. The only reason she's deputy leader of the Liberal Party and the LNP is because she's a moderate, and they had to keep the moderate faction happy to get Angus Taylor in. That's the only reason she's not there, because of her unbelievable knowledge or people skills, which you're about to find out, or because she's a good operator. They just had to have someone who was acceptable for Angus Taylor to have as your deputy. He's a conservative. You had to have a moderate. He's got to try and keep his moderates happy. It's going to tear him down. They are going to tear him down. But this is what Taylor has to deal with. So you've got the 7 Spotlight thing on. You've got these new special envoy bringing out his recommendations. You've got the hate speech laws. You've got all this happening while Pauline's overseas visiting Tommy Robinson to look at the problems they've got with mass immigration, in particular the Islamic and Muslim immigration into that country. It's all coincidental. It's happening at the same time, is it not? And now we got a dingbat like this, which I'll share with you now. And this is our opposition. Just have a listen to this idiot. And she is an idiot.
Pauline Hanson's comments concerning the White Australia policy.
What comments, Andrew? This guy's a prick. Andrew Clennell, her comments was just the start of a timeline. That was it. So he's blowing it up now. This is Sky News trying to discredit Pauline Hanson.
Pretty big condemnation from the Prime Minister and Home Affairs Minister yesterday.
Who cares? Who cares?
Do you condemn these comments by Pauline Hanson?
What comments? She just identified the White Australia policy as a starting point in a timeline to the issues we're having with immigration and multiculturalism. That's the only comment she made. Her comment was it started with the removal of the White Australia policy, which it did. Before that, we didn't have this sort of immigration. We didn't have multiculturalism. All multiculturalism and immigration started with the removal of the White Australia policy. Does that mean you support the White Australia policy? This guy is a manipulative prick.
Yes, I do. I think that they were...
And this bitch is a dumb bitch. Yes, I do. Just follows the media talking point tagline. Listen to the rest
They
of
were
it.
divisive, they were inflammatory, and they were totally un-Australian.
How can she speak on what's un-Australian, what's not? Her party and her moderates have sold out what it is to be Australian a long time ago. Tony Abbott, Angus Taylor, Liberal Party, you guys are going to minor party status, and if you keep letting her and the likes of Andrew Bragg, who I'll show you in a minute, be the example of what your party's about, you are in so much trouble.
How do you think they'll be received in Australia, those comments?
Really strongly, but Pauline Hanson's not losing any supporters from those comments. Let me tell you that. She'll probably get more.
Exactly the way I have just described it. That's not the way we operate in Australia. We have
not the way you operate, Jane, not the way your politicians operate, not the way the Labor politicians operate, and not the way our bureaucrats operate, but everyday Australians operate in a very different way to you. I can tell you that now.
A proud history of multiculturalism.
Do we? What's our proud history? It goes back to the 70s. Pauline Hanson identified it correctly. Al Grasby introduced the term. So multiculturalism only goes back to the mid-70s. That's 50 years. Just over 50 years. That's not a proud history. That's a very short history in human history. It's not even a lifetime. So I don't know what she's talking about. Before that, we didn't have a history of multiculturalism.
A great migrant nation. We do agree in the coalition that migration in the last 4 years has run out of control.
So she agrees that there's a problem, but she doesn't want to address the problem.
Numbers have been too high. The standards have been too low.
What standards? What standards are being too low, Jane? Standards that we come from Islamic countries who bring in people that shoot people to death on a beach for celebrating a holiday, injure another 45 people of that one. They're too scared to say radical Islam.
That needs
Crazy.
to change. If we're going to have the prosperous and progressive society that we have always wanted, that we've...
Notice you use that word progressive. It's an ugly word, progressive. That puts her on the left side.
Enjoyed in Australia, we need to make sure that we have a migration program that's delivering for our country, that's driving productivity, not taking away from it.
And that's why they're all at the Marvel Stadium for the Melbourne Welcomes Modi rally, because they see Indians as a cheap form of labour in Australia to get our productivity up.
But restoring a white Australia policy is not part of that.
When did Pauline Hanson talk about restoring a white Australia policy? So here you again. She never said that, whatever, but they're twisting her words to try and taint her, just like they did with Malcolm Roberts last week.
What did you make of Pauline Hanson doing a podcast with Tommy Robinson?
And here they go. Guilt by associations. If they can taint Tommy Robinson, which they're doing through Andrew Bolt, who I used to have a lot of respect for, but now I put him alongside Piers Morgan, who I have zero respect for, because they taint a man for maintaining a fight. Let's keep going.
Well, look, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Pauline Hanson. The decisions she makes to speak to whoever she wants to go overseas and to, stay at whatever hotel and go to whatever fashion parade is.
So there's a low blow. She's trying to link her to Gina Rinehart. Don't forget, Jane Hume, she's a member. She's the deputy leader of the Liberal Party that happily accepted God knows how much money from Gina Rinehart previously.
Her own business.
Gina Rinehart, for example, was a very big supporter of Peter Dutton.
What I can tell you, though, is that Angus Taylor and I, throughout this period of time, have been going out around the country and speaking to small businesses about
I call bullshit.
What's important to them. And can I tell you that none of them have said that the White Australia policy is a problem. None of them.
No one's bringing up the White Australia policy except for the media and the opposition and the ALP.
Those small businesses are telling me that banning a burqa is a good idea.
Did you ask them, Jane? I dare say most normal Australians, and I'm a small business owner, I think banning the burqa is great. I think actually talking about the issues multiculturalism presents to business and our society is great. Did you ask them, Jane? Odds on you didn't.
What they're saying is that they want to see energy prices reduced. They want to see inflation put under control. They want to see taxes reduced. They want to see a sense of productivity and opportunity restored into our economy. They're not interested in the things that Pauline Hanson are talking.
Look at that. Hanson and Rinehart on holiday in Italy. So it wasn't done on the public dime. Who cares? Hanson can go on holidays with whoever she wishes. This is just, again, a taint to try and say she's the puppet of billionaires. Yet we just had a photo of 4 prominent ALP leaders in a room with Pratt, one of the richest men in Australia. Was there a big deal? Was there a big media push about that? We're getting to our point. I'm sorry for taking so long.
Is an opportunity for them, for their families and for their businesses to get ahead. That's what Angus Taylor and I are focused on talking about, not the
Bullshit. They're focused on talking about One Nation. All they do every day, every second day, is attack One Nation. Maybe try and go 4 weeks without saying One Nation or Pauline Hanson once, and then focusing on Australian issues. In fact, try it for 4 months, and then maybe we might start believing it. If someone asks you about One Nation or Pauline Hanson, say, I'm not interested in that conversation. Then I believe you, but you don't. You talk about her every day because she's smashing you in the polls.
To talk about.
She's just a low vile human being, that one. She's another one who voted to support things like abortion at full term. So she is a smarmy sort of person. Now listen, another moderate. Now you got to listen, bit different subject, but it gives you an idea of where the moderates in the Liberal Party are at. So we'll give you a listen to him as well before we go to our next point. We're getting there.
Well, I think we have to be sensible about these things. I mean, we have men and women, we have other people. Well, I think we have to be sensible about these things. I mean, we have men and women, we have other people.
I think we have to be sensible about these things, but we have men and women and other people. Oh, my God. I mean, seriously, that's a moderate within the Liberal Party ranks. You've just listened to do Liberal Party senior Liberals. This is Angus Taylor's problem, who sound more like they're members of the ALP. This is the Liberal Party's problem. Tony Abbott, you got to do something about it. If you ever want the Liberals back, and listen, a strong conservative Liberal Party would be good for Australia. But you are not strong and you are not conservative. You are moderate. Jane Hume said progressive. That gives it all away, that one word. If you're progressive, you're not conservative. And that is your issue right there. You're infested with these conservative moderates who can't even say there's a biological man and a biological woman, but magically now there's other people. We have these, and obviously he's talking about trans people, but they're either biological men or biological women. You cannot get away from that. That's science. That's fact. On climate change, we are told to believe the science. Science says there's biological men and there's biological women. But now they're trying to twist the science to say there's something else. No, there's not. You're born a man or you're born a woman. And then after that, you decide, well, somewhere in my head, I'm a trans person. I was born in the wrong body, which usually used to mean you need some help. But now we accommodate that, and doctors are making all sorts of money hand over fist with all these surgeries to change men into women and women into men. And our society's nuts. I said the other day, in 100 years, they're going to come back and look at how this part of our history and think, how can people be this dumb? But that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking at. So all of this is in my book, and I don't want to be a Candace Owen conspiracy theorist, but you got to have some suspicions here. Pauline Hanson is overseas looking at the Islamic problem generated by multiculturalism and immigration in England. She's talking to what they call the far right. If you've got a concern with multiculturalism and Islamic immigration, you are part of the far right now. You know, they're going to taint you with the White Australia policy. They're going to call you a Nazi. They're going to call you a bigot. And we're 2 years out, just under 2 years out from a federal election. It'll get worse before it gets better. I hope Pauline Hanson, like she said in the interview, is ready for what's coming, because it's coming. It'll get worse. And the stronger she polls, the worse it's going to get. And if you listen to mainstream media, you're going to get it more and more, which is why we are going Monday to Friday. But mark my words, is it a coincidence that at the same time they aired this on Channel 7's Spotlight series last night, that just before that they've come out with the recommendations of the special envoy? How long have they had these recommendations? Did they time this? They now have a bunch of things. They've got the hate speech laws they introduced earlier in the year. They appointed this special envoy. They twisted the Royal Commission so it wouldn't mention radical Islam, which was assisted apparently, and not just apparently, it was strongly recommended it by some Jewish groups who proclaimed it, about turning that Royal Commission into anti-Semitism instead of radical Islam. One of the biggest own goals by a lobby group I've ever seen. Had the Australian Jewish lobby groups asked for that Royal Commission to be about radical Islam, they would have got the results they wanted. Instead, they've empowered Islam. They've empowered Islamic lobby groups. They've empowered radical Islamists. They have now got these protections in our schools, on our universities, in our laws, hate speech, crimes, in the Australian Federal Police. It's going to be infested through our bureaucracy. On Tuesday nights, 8 p.m., our main, what I call our main podcast, that's going to be our podcast for how to fix these problems. Policy that can fix the problems facing Australia. And I'm happy for people to put policy. I haven't had anyone doing it. I've launched a bunch of my own, but I'll be putting that policy out to a bunch of people. I don't know many take it up, but I think it's policy that could work. But I don't think any of the political parties, including One Nation, would go for it. Maybe it's a bit too radical, but we're living in radical times. Islamic community and lobby groups aren't going to be, they're not going to bat an eyelid about being radical. There's other members, LGBTQI, the trans groups aren't going to bat an eyelid about being radical. The Palestinian groups aren't going to bat an eyelid about being radical. The climate change lobby groups aren't going to bat an eyelid about radical. Yet if you're a member of the centre right, not the far right, if you're a member of a Jewish lobby group, you are hesitant because you know all the pushback is going to come your way. So everyday Australians, just like me, I'm a nobody. I have concerns for my country. I have concerns for that flag there. I have concerns for the history that it represents and the history and what we're going to make our Australia for our next generations, who are now going to have to be subject to some of the heaviest indoctrination. They're going to be indoctrinated about the Indigenous groups, the LGBTQI groups, the trans groups, and now the Islamist groups. They're going to be getting it from all sides. And unless people start speaking out, unless we start getting the politicians we want in our parliament, nothing changes. If you want something to change, you've got to speak out. Hence this program. But Pauline and them have to be careful on how they speak out. I'll guarantee you, and people say, oh, no, ALP won't do this. If the ALP think it can get them power, they will do it. If they have all the tools at their disposal now, if Pauline steps out of line or anybody in her party steps out of line, they will designate them a hate group. Bet your socks on it. Old Aussie saying, sorry. They will designate Pauline Hanson as a hate group, and they will not be able to stand at the next election. People say, oh, no, they won't do that. They'll have a rebellion and whatever. Well, how are we going to rebel? With what? What have we got to rebel with? The only thing we've got to rebel with is our speech while we've got it. So you don't have to do it, but you can tell you how you can support it. If you support what I'm saying, spread the word. Share my podcast every Monday, 9 o'clock. We've gone too long already. It's 10 past 10. I only really want these to go for an hour. We can come back to these the next day. Hence, we've got them each morning. So I hope you enjoyed our first one from me and my boy JJ here in Southeast Melbourne. And before someone has a go at me for the blue hoodie, this is actually my work top, believe it or not. I'm a sports coach. That's all I am. I'm a basketball coach. Many people know me in Melbourne from that, who loves his country. That's all it is. And see the blue in our flag, love it. And if you live in Melbourne, having a good hoodie on a cold day, and even though it's beautiful out there, it's still bloody cold here in Melbourne, there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of people wear them. And if it's out of fashion for me as a 63-year-old to wear a blue hoodie, bad luck. It keeps me warm. So anyway, it's time for me to go get some breakfast and get into my day. God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets like this one. And God bless that flag and this country. Let's not give her up without a fight, eh? All right. I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, bright and early. I'll have my big cup of coffee, and we'll get into it again tomorrow. If you've got any, one last couple of things, if So I did finish up, but a couple of quick things. If you've got any thoughts or you want to even come on the program, let me know. If you are coming on the morning sessions, we are going to try and keep it to an hour. I'm a bit over time at the moment. And so we'll see how that goes. And if you, like I said, can support us, please look at getting us a coffee. Shouting us a coffee, because I'm now taking a lot of time away from my work, which does cost me. And I'm like every other Australian. I've got bills to pay. I've got rent to pay. I've got dog food and cost to cover. So if you can support us in any way, that would be great through just buying us a cup of coffee. That's all you need to do. The link will be in the comments for the coffee. So, anything you can do to subscribe, to support us would be greatly appreciated. And we can make this bigger and better. We've got to get more people speaking out like we're doing, whether you're young, whether you're old, all you do, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're an Aussie. And by the way, I'm not opposed to immigration. I do agree with Jane Hume on one thing. It's got to be sensible immigration that complements our culture. But I am against multiculturalism. You can be for immigration, but against multiculturalism. They're not the two in the same thing. If you want to immigrate to Australia, become Australian. Understand what it is to be Australian. And our politicians are trying to steal this thing about Australian values. They are not for Australian values. Anyway, we can continue this tomorrow morning. See ya. Have a great day. God bless you. I'll repeat it. God bless you, your kids, your grandkids, your pets. God bless that flag. God bless this country. Let's keep fighting. All right. See you guys. Bye.